So, guys, welcome back to Who Gives a Vote. It is week 4 for us, but it's 5 days until the election, or it's election currently, but until the results start coming in and
the big dance.
The last day is over. How you feeling, George? You excited?
I think, it's coming to a head. I think people are paying attention now. Probably last night's debate was very well watched. People are tuned in.
Absolutely. Sotera, how are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm confident that we will be a few weeks off knowing the composition of the parliament, and that's exciting.
And no complaints for you?
Nope, no complaints. I'm good.
Well, welcome, Carly. Sotera, did you want to quickly give us a disclaimer before we continue? Because you are a member of the, you're an employee of the RDA, is that correct?
Yeah, I am, and that's a funded organisation, funded by governments, but mainly the Australian government. So I guess my disclaimer is, as it is every other week, that what I say tonight is not a representation of the organisation that I work for. It's my own personal opinion, and I'm certainly not endorsing or dissing any of the candidates. I'm just here to shed some light on what we've been seeing in playing out in the local media and politics.
And George, you have a disclaimer about your crazy organisation that you're a part of.
Yes, I've been a member of the Australian Labor Party for most of my life and an elected member of the Fraser Coast Regional Council since April 2012. I'm not here speaking on behalf of either of them.
Yeah, and also I'm not a political party member either.
Yeah.
Just wanted to throw that in there.
You're just a troublemaker, which is fantastic. Last week we did touch on the Senate, and that's something that you're very passionate about. Sotera, you wanted to talk about it, but I wanted to just clarify a few things that maybe we said we'd come back to, and that would be the first, which is the how the Senate vote. So I've got it up here on a slide. So on the white Senate ballot paper, you need to either number at least 6 boxes above the line for the parties or groups of your choice, so at least 6, and then number, or underneath the line, number at least 12 boxes below the line for the individual candidates of your choice.
Yeah.
I bring that up for 2 reasons. One, because we said we'd come back and check that, and 2, because I was right. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's right. You were right. It's so intensely complicated to count when you do it. When you have different ways people can vote, and
but I guess it's designed. And I remember when it used to be different. You used to have to number 1 through and complete under the line. A lot of people make mistakes. So you might have 12, 15, but you shouldn't. If you don't want to, you don't have to do more than that. Yeah. So I understand why they would do that. It stops or it reduces the amount of mistakes that people would make.
And I come back to my comment in last week's episode. This is an opportunity for people to cast their preferences how they wish. This is not a deal that's done. This is a voter going into the box, ticking as they see fit according to their values or however they wish to vote. So it's really important that people know that, because I think when I read things about preferences or information about it, it feels like people don't quite understand how they feel like there's a back door. That's only on the how to vote card. That's not on. Yeah.
And it makes, you have to go to England to see how Liberal Democrats might get, 28% of the nationwide vote and end up with 14% of the seats, or the US, where it really is just a 2-party system. The preferences are good in terms of, an innovation for Australia, making sure that your vote counts in a much bigger way.
Yeah, and what's on a how to vote card is a suggestion only, and
your paper can be a true alignment of how you feel about each candidate.
Yeah, that's right.
It's always good to put the one you want last.
That's the hardest part, choosing who you want last.
Well, didn't you say last week you do all 93?
Yeah, all below the line, right to the end.
That is crazy.
So, Sotera, without telling us who you're voting for, can you tell us who you're putting 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1? Or just, no, not 1, just everything but 1. In order.
I can't.
No. Okay, that's fantastic. The other thing is we did have one slide and the other slide was missing. So do you want to just quickly read through those?
Sure.
Don't forget the libertarian one.
Yes, libertarian, not liberties. Radio party representation in Queensland. We have the Socialist Alliance, Trumpet of Patriots, Indigenous Aboriginal Party of Australia, Fusion Planet Rescue Whistleblower Protection Innovation, Australia's Voice, Jackie Lambie Network, Jared Rennick People First, Katters Australia Party, Australian Democrats, LNP, Australian Labor Party, Great Australian Party, Heart Party, Citizens Party, Animal Justice Party, Family First, Legalised Cannabis Party, The Greens, Pauline Hanson's One Nation, Sustainable Australia Party, Universal Basic Income, Libertarian and Ungrouped.
So the independents. Fantastic. So I just wanted to quickly clarify that as well, because I didn't want people to think that we were showing favourites by missing a slide from last week. So that leaves us to this week. And I wanted to touch on the Meet the Candidates meeting. When was it? Last Tuesday? When did we meet? Tuesday?
Yeah, it would have been Tuesday because I came here
Yeah.
Before pickleball, which is every Tuesday.
How did you go?
Did you win?
Yeah.
No, we didn't win.
You didn't win.
But we'll be back tomorrow.
So it was Wednesday then that I went and listened to David, Trish and Kerry. They all attended. I've got a little clip that I'm going to show, but I wanted to address the fact that there were people that didn't attend. Tyler Carmen from One Nation did not attend. I did ask him via a text message why he didn't, and this was his response. Did you want to read?
His response was, I didn't attend as my wife and I just welcomed our second child, so I've taken time out of the campaign and get back into it tomorrow. So that is why I didn't attend the meet and greet.
That's perfectly understandable. Yeah. And congratulations on the birth of the second child.
And whether it's understandable or not, I just appreciate the fact that he responded. Like that to me shows
Didn't just hide from it.
Yeah, shows you're willing to engage with your constituents, which is really important. So good on him. I did ask the Greens, the Independent and Trumpet of Patriots via email because they only had emails as opposed to...
I think the Greens candidate might be Sunshine Coast based. I'm not 100% on that.
I looked up, he's from Gladstone, I think.
Okay.
Well, that's the membership that he's part of with the Greens.
Okay.
No responses from any of those. Moving on to that, so I want to quickly go through the next... This video is a little bit long, but I think it's important because it provides some context in relation to a local issue that was raised by Glenn Winnie. It's the Pyalba-Burrum Heads Road, which seems to be a big issue that the federal government or the state government have sort of committed to, then uncommitted to, and there's some uncertainty.
We've got some new information.
Sorry.
How did you get her at the Harvey Bay event?
What a draw
Sarah
card.
Ferguson.
So I'll have to go back and we'll have to try and find that. It doesn't seem like I've got the right video in the right space. So let me come and I'll have to go and find that. We'll go back to that question if that's okay. The next video I want to show is in relation to the ABC, Christopher Pine and Bill Shorten, as we chase down that other one. And they're talking about some information came in relation to One Nation preferences with the LNP. So let's watch that.
We've got some new information that the coalition will be preferencing One Nation, which hasn't happened for a long time. Do you think that's a significant decision?
Well, I think One Nation's a very different party today than it was 25 or 30 years ago. And I would say the Greens and the Labor Party preference each other from the left to the centre left, and One Nation, I just don't think it is the bogeyman, if you like, that it was 30 years ago back in 1996 when Pauline Hanson was first elected to the Parliament. One Nation's won a number of seats, in fact, in their own right. They won 2 in the Western Australian upper house recently. So I wouldn't say that they are a mainstream party like the Coalition and Labor, but, you know, the Labor Party preferences the Greens without batting an eyelid, and yet the Greens have some pretty extreme policies on negative gearing and capital gains tax and Israel that I'm sure even Bill Shorten doesn't support.
There you go, Bill. Tell us about what you think about Green preferences.
Oh, listen, we have a compulsory preferential voting system. You've got to put a number in every box, so you end up picking someone to put a number in. The reality is that we're chasing... both parties chase their first votes. The point about the One Nation deal for the Liberals to, as you correctly observe, change the habits of the past is they're desperate. Can we just spell it out? I think the people in campaign headquarters for Prime Minister Albanese are holding their breath. I think they are nervous. I think they know that perhaps the coalition could get their act together in the next 10 days. But really, when you think about it, a defence policy about which they say is crucial dropped out after 1 million people have voted. You've got this working from home or not working from home policy. Do you know, Chris will be appalled when I tell him this. Do you know, in the Liberal Party's logistics are so bad, so terrible, they've got a billboard poster in a street in Brisbane warning Queenslanders that if you get Anthony Albanese, you'll be helping Jacinta Allen. Most people in Queensland haven't heard of Jacinta Allen.
I find that hard to believe.
I know.
I think he speaks the truth there.
I'm going to check that myself.
You check that yourself. Now, just quickly.
So that's a nice little conversation there between two what are they, competitors or colleagues?
Adversaries.
Yep. I guess my question, is Pauline Hanson's One Nation Party a different party than it was 20 years ago, and is it becoming more mainstream?
I'm not sure that they are. I actually think that it's more likely that the electorate has moved further to the right. They're more conservative. That seems to be a trend around the world. So
Yeah. I don't think the party's changed so much. It's just the Liberal Party's changed. I mean, what Christopher Pyne was saying there, he wasn't talking about any issues about policy. He was saying, though, they've been elected a few times, but in 98, they won 11 seats in Queensland for state parliament. They've actually been much more successful in the past. So what he was saying there about them now being successful, winning 2 seats here and a seat there, it's totally irrelevant. I mean, ultimately, as Bill Shorten said, it's compulsory preferential. If somebody votes 1 to 6 on the 7 candidates, that's informal. So you've got to tell your supporters to number every single square. In the end, there's nowhere in the lower house where the Liberal Party or National Party preferences will be distributed to One Nation. I mean, in theory, there will be a few Labor ones, say in Melbourne, where like the Labor Party and Liberal seats, their preferences aren't being distributed except for a handful of seats across the country. It's more in the Senate where there will be potentially the balance will help a One Nation candidate get a quota in the Senate.
Yeah, I would agree with both sentiments. I think also One Nation have become very sophisticated in their promotion and marketing, and they had those fantastic videos that were the parody of Parliament. I thought that they were very clever. So I think there's been some shifts in the way that the electorate's responding to our politicians, but also if you think of them as a machine, they've got more resources now. They're able to do more marketing. Has that resulted in more seats? Probably not, as George has just pointed out.
I also asked Tyler Carman what he thought, and this was his response. Let's have a look at that.
20 years ago, I was
Yep.
Sorry, I thought you weren't ready. 20 years ago, I was a 13-year-old, so can't comment on what it was like back then. What I can say is that over the last 2 elections, One Nation is trying extremely hard to put forward good thought-out policies, and that is evident by both the ALP and LNP adopting our policies and putting these forward into government, and that is a positive as it shows we are on the right track and making ground on the 2 majors.
Thoughts?
Yeah, a bit more detail would help explain what he's meaning there. I'm not sure what policies he's saying has been adopted, and ultimately, they are a party that meets the aspirations of a section of the community. It's a democracy will do that. Different parties will be established, and I think they take votes off all the major parties.
But I'm trying to think of what policies that the ALP or the LNP have adopted off One Nation.
Yeah, I don't know what he's referring to there.
Yeah,
I have heard that claim before that he made, but I don't know what he's referring to either.
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
Because I get the impression they're critical of everything, so I don't know what he's saying. Obviously, there's something there that the One Nation supports that the Labor government is doing.
Yeah. I want to take you back to that, the Pyalba. We'll go back. We've now got the video, the Pyalba Byram Heads Road, and this is what the candidates from Hinkler, I should say, had to say.
As soon as they start doing the road, they're stalled again. Tyro bypass has been stalled for another year. The roundabout at Burrell Road and Boundary Road has been stalled. Federal government stopped money in all these projects. So I want to commit with from all parties that they'll actually find the money to get this road done in this term.
I agree. I drive that regularly. It's a disgusting road. And so is the Bruce Highway. I mean, I believe there was a commitment for funding to have a dual lane highway at the Bruce. Where is it? We definitely need to get in and argue for things like that. So if you elect me, I'm definitely be arguing for better roads in this area, because it doesn't matter what colour we are, we still deserve good roads. And that's why regional areas get left behind, and it's not fair and it's not right. And that's why I'm here, to stand up for things like that and say, it's not fair, it's not right, it needs to happen. We need change.
Thanks, Trish.
It'd be really interesting to know why that has happened. So it was obviously committed and then nothing has happened. So I would like to really investigate the issue. If it was there in the budget, it should be able to be used. If there was a reason that it was delayed, sometimes it can be state government that can be included in these things. But I would definitely look into it for you. I can't promise you anything right now, I'm sorry. But I would definitely look into the original commitment, why it hasn't happened, and how we can make it happen.
Thanks, Trish.
It's a lady that easy, mate. I'll say yes to you right now, but we can't, obviously. It's a lot of money. But yeah, the commitment was there, and the state, I've spoken to David about this from a state point of view, it's the price that's gone out that's been the issue, I believe. So it's trying, and the state now looking for support from the feds to extend that assistance out to that 80/20 on top of what's already budgeted for. So whoever's going to be in government, when that is, in a couple of weeks' time, that'll be on their list of to-dos, the priorities of finding out how much it is once they get that the new number. But until that happens, whoever's in is going to have to look at that and try and work with the current state government and to make sure it happens. That they've already started works out there. It's about imminent, if you can call it that. So and the Tyro one's same. It's been on the books for the last. That was approved 3 years ago. It was supposed to be in the budget last year from the last state government. So hopefully the new state government will have it in their next budget coming up for their first full budget coming along. So with the 80/20 split again. So that's the best I can say.
How important is this issue for Hervey Bay?
Really important. That is a road that is barely fit for purpose. That intersection, which will take a long time for the state government to fix the intersection, and that road does need to be expanded significantly. There's a lot of development that's going to happen between Burham Heads and Pyalba in terms of retail and residential.
What did you think of the responses from the candidates there?
I think they were pretty standard. I think of the three, if I was I didn't go to the debate, but just listening to them, I thought Trish committed to looking into it further. And I think that, that was a good thing. If you were a voter, you'd want to hear that.
I think the response from the Family First candidate is a bit naive in the sense that the likelihood that somebody as a Family First candidate who's not going to be in government influencing necessarily, unless of course it's a hung parliament and they need that vote, then absolutely there's some real leverage there. But I'm not sure that her response, I drive it every day, we've got to get it fixed, without understanding the complexities of it, is necessarily, it's a good answer, like it's an answer, but is it an educated one? Probably not. What do you think, Carly?
I would agree with that, and I think that LNP and Labor candidates didn't really appear all that familiar.
No.
But again, that's the Bundaberg-Hervey Bay divide, is it?
Yeah. But Trish seemed to know about the issue and she understood the complexities, like, well, if it's in if it was in the budget,
definitely.
now it's not there, what's the delay?
Why?
I thought that was
she
a
was
good
asking
response.
the questions,
And it might not be something running for federal office people would anticipate. I mean, it is, in the end,
Very localised,
a state government issue.
And I think that roads is one of those complex assets. Who maintains them? Who owns them? Is it local government? Is it state government? Is it the Australian government? And if you're if you're new to this, you wouldn't necessarily know who's responsible for that.
Yeah, so I mean, that is a very significant road. I think, I think we missed the very beginning of the question. It was talking about Tara Bypass, and I think they were mainly answering the Pyalba Burham Heads Road. Is that what my question ultimately is about?
And the reason I cut it out, I don't want the microphone was playing up, and they had to replace the microphone, so the question in itself was lost, and that's why I gave it some context. He did ask about some other issues as well,
and I think they could have answered the Bruce Highway a bit better, but federal candidates are not necessarily going to know all the state government roads,
definitely
the contributions that federal government were putting into state government roads.
Are you talking about the Bruce Highway in Wide Bay or Maranoa? That's a callback to anyone who hasn't watched the last episode where I said that the Bruce Highway's in Maranoa.
You were adamant, so you weren't right.
Not on that. Well,
I think he was digging himself.
Have you come back with a map to prove that I wasn't right? I'm not sure you have. Right, so let's
get on to that.
Yeah. All right, so from the meet the candidates to a more federal or national perspective, we did have the leaders debate, as you alluded to. George, what was your, what was your take of the debate?
I thought it was a good debate. I enjoyed the sort of the associations. I thought it was a pretty good format. I think they stretched out. Obviously, they wanted to get a lot of TV out of it. Stretching out the results, they could have given the results right away.
Yeah, they're working. They're working.
Yeah, working
diligently
on it. We're expecting the results in 3 minutes and 2 minutes 59. But no, I thought
I was expecting.
How many ads can we squish in?
I was expecting to see people up there with little abacuses doing all this the hard work. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I thought it was good. It brought out the personalities of both the candidates.
Did you have a comment about the...
I have no comment about it because I didn't watch it. I'm sorry. So I'm going to be watching this with interest.
Oh, very good.
I think it was a reasonable mix of looking at their characters, seeing how they react and how they are on their feet responding to things, but then it also had just little tidbits in there too. So I think it was a reasonable mix. But I think you're going to lead on to what you didn't like about it, Stuart.
I'm gonna start with what I detested the most. Now, please don't take this as a criticism of Dutton in relation to his comment here. He stutters a bit, and I have my very strong opinion as to why, and I think it's unfair, and I hope whoever came up with this idea is... what's the prison that Trump sends people to?
Guantanamo Bay. El Salvador.
El Salvador. Maybe not that harsh, but let's just have a look.
Interest rates started to drop in other countries before they dropped here, and they've only dropped by 0.25 of 1% after having risen on 12 occasions. So we provide that immediate relief, and then our longer-term plan is to fix up the energy crisis, because that's what's driven up the cost of food by 30%. It's driven up the cost of everything across the economy, and that has to be the real... I think when you think about it, and it is emotional when you think about what families are going through, but that long-term relief is actually going to turn around Labor's very bad position.
So, Sotera, you watched that for the first time, didn't you? Now, tell me, what was wrong with that?
That was like a dramatic introduction of music at the complete wrong time, which put him off. It looked like he was put off by that.
Yeah, so to give us some idea, they were given a minute or 30 seconds, depending on the response, or in some cases, 4 minutes for both to respond.
So that's the wrap up.
So that is, rather than have
the bell?
I don't know, but so at 10 seconds, this music starts. And
it's like they got the producer from The Chase over and put them on.
Yeah, because they instinctively know to leave the big point to the last 10 seconds when it's getting washed around. Yeah.
And I couldn't concentrate on what he was saying or anyone was saying. And even when they did the 4 minute parts, so there was 4 minutes where there was a topic and they could talk for 4 minutes. And they, at the end of the 4 minutes, they had that dramatic music coming again. But it just so happened for the first couple of 4 minute sections, Dutton was the one speaking. So you always got this really, and I would hate that. I think that is a shocking production for a debate. A debate should be the words and the message that the people have to say, not overproducing it. To me, that was just...
Yeah, they intruded on his statement.
Yeah, and I hope they scrap it. I hope that... I haven't seen... Has there been any media about this, or am I just the only one who has... these sorts of issues?
I haven't seen any media. It feels like they're trying to turn it into infotainment rather than actually getting information from people, though.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that they didn't get people to vote. Like, they should have had all the candidates, all the leaders, and vote one out systematically every time and put a torch over.
Oh, like that game show, You Are the One. Yeah, okay.
I don't know that one.
Then that music would be
a Chinese dating game show, I think it is.
I haven't seen it.
I was thinking of the island. What is it? The island or the
Survivor.
Survivor. I've just seen the adverts where they put a.
Yeah, the tribe has spoken.
The tribe has spoken. Yeah. I think that would be much more interesting.
That's funny. Oh
So-
my gosh.
This is one that intrigued you a bit, George. The next one. So let's have a look at this one for us. Just.
Here is a dozen eggs. Mr Dutton, do you know how much they cost?
About $4.20.
No, you might get half a dozen.
Mr Albanese?
$7 if you can find them, because it's hard to find them at the moment.
Yeah, you're looking at, I reckon you're looking at 8+. No.
Yeah, there you go. It's the Sunny Queen 12 eggs from Woolies. They're $8.80 from Coles. They're slightly cheaper at about $8.50. Yeah, that's. I think you maybe
Own
Mr
brand.
Albanese got the advantage.
Purely does the shopping. I could buy a dozen at a time instead of a half a dozen.
Yeah, I think Albanese didn't make as much of that free kick as he got. But yeah, clearly, I mean, Sunny, that's not the cheapest brand. I mean, perhaps they are buying black and white or some brand. But yeah, the same person who told Mark Riley to say, oh, $4, that's for half a dozen, also did the theme music on Dutton. Like, you'd think Albanese would have said $8 when he got that.
Yeah, because he said $4.60. He goes, at least double. Maybe you couldn't count very well. But
Or maybe it's like things are slightly less when you buy them in bulk.
Or could I suggest that that's the price that he actually legitimately, like maybe he missed that and he answered it.
Yeah, correctly, because he's got, I think he might get, hopefully he doesn't buy caged eggs. Hopefully he buys free-range eggs.
Well, if we look at the prices, and I have done this because I think it's important to fact-check people, and I looked at Woolworths.
Do not buy caged eggs.
By the way.
Yeah. Oh, those are cage-free eggs. Yeah, cage-free eggs.
Yeah, so they're large cage-free eggs. Now, I don't know whether that means the cages are free or they're free of cages.
In a barn.
Yeah, in a barn. So $5.60, $5.90, is the price for those eggs. And then when you look at the Woolworths branded extra large free range eggs, 700 grams, $6.60. If I was probably giving Anthony Albanese some guidance and he said, how much do you think eggs were? I would say somewhere between $6.50 and $8.
Depending on the brand.
Yeah, depending on the brand. So $8.80 is the higher level. So
Sunny Queen advertises with 7 or something.
Yeah, so I'm going to say there's evidence that Albo was right. It's sitting. Maybe it's a little bit more expensive down in Sydney as well, but certainly the price that they were referring to for the brand that they said was definitely $8.80 on there as well.
I recall them doing this a few elections back with milk and bread.
Normally petrol and the interest rate, stuff like that.
Yeah, and it is a real...
Unemployment rate, what's the current unemployment rate, that kind of thing.
Yeah, trying to, I guess, put them on some pedestal.
Yeah. They're trying to do the John Hewson thing. Yeah. They're trying to trip people up at the last minute.
Yeah,
the cake, and the GST. Yeah.
I love that. I love that one. Almost as much as this one. Let me see if I can. No, it's not going to let me do it. Maybe next time. So moving on. Well, firstly, let me ask a question for you guys. Is this are these kind of gotcha questions have any value to anyone?
Yes, absolutely.
Why?
I think they're great. Yeah.
Why?
It just shows you they're down to earth. It shows you how quickly they can think. I mean, like Dutton saying $4 something, that's pretty, like, you got to know it's more than that.
Is that like the 2000s?
You just have to read the Australian, whatever, to know that it's going to be more than that.
But you've never bought an egg.
Yeah.
So is that fair to you?
Yeah, but I would still be able to guess. I would guess way more than $4. Yeah.
Way more. It's got to be. Yeah. I don't buy eggs.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a big fan of eggs. I hate to say it. I'm not anti eggs. I just don't like them. And nor do you.
And I guess, I mean, Dutton, the last speech you showed where he was drowned out with the music, he was talking about the price of food rising.
So, it's a cost of living election, and then
he wants to make it an issue. If like he should know, like it should be part of his thing. Milk, bread, butter, it's all going up. He should know what it is.
Should have staff filling him in on it if he doesn't know.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if this. And again, I haven't had the luxury of checking the news cycle today on this, but for me, in my mind, the worst example or the worst performed question that Dutton gave was this one, and I'm happy to chat and explain why.
Let's have a look. Elon Musk, a billionaire around 30 times over, taken into Trump's government now, winding back just months in, Mr Albanese. What comes to mind looking at this man?
Tesla and a very rich man.
Mr. Dutton?
I think evil genius.
Evil genius.
Okay.
So my question is this a massive blunder by referring to a person who's respected by some, not all, as evil?
Yes.
Is that?
Yes. Elon Musk is currently holding what some would at some points have said that he's basically running the place like the president. If he's going to be a senior person in the president's inner circle and Dutton has to work with him, that's, my notes say, not statesmanly.
That is the issue, isn't it? And it's not the first time where Dutton has made that error where he's been clumsy with his the way that he talks about leaders. And what my note was is that a member of the public could make this comment, but a leader of a country should not.
I wouldn't make that comment.
You wouldn't.
I wouldn't make that. It just shows.
So, what do you think of Musk?
I think of Teslas and X and the formerly known Twitter. Like, I think it's a window into Dutton's mind that he doesn't think he's going to be prime minister next week. Like, if he thought he was going to be prime minister, if he thinks he's moving into the Lodge next week, he wouldn't have said that. That's about him trying to save furniture, and he thinks that it distances themselves a bit from Trump, and it might help them in a few outer Melbourne seats. But it is, if he thought that he was going to be prime minister, there's no way he would say that.
Yeah, because that is before pre-Trump, that would have been like a diplomatic absolute minefield. Like the Australian government would have to be giving a please explain, because he's still he's still a
elected official.
Yeah, he's almost a cabinet secretary. Yeah.
So it is beyond me how he maybe it was just one of those missteps. Maybe the music was going around in his head the whole time, and he couldn't stop his couldn't get off it.
Do you think that's what happened to Kevin Rudd when he made that tweet about Trump? And then deleted it? Because I'm saying they're human. I'm not, they make these blunders. Yes, it is perhaps like insight into his mindset about where he'll be next week, but interesting.
Georgia might be onto something. It does feel like this week he's kind of dialed up the rhetoric on a few of those culture war, dog whistling type topics. So
what do you call the ABC? The
hate media.
The hate media.
And the Guardian,
which is, again, straight out of a book from Donald Trump. That's how he engages, and he's trying to pick up that group of people that feel that way. The problem with our voting system is everyone votes. Yeah. So you're not motivating a group of people to go out to vote. They already have to vote. They get a fine if they don't. So they're going to come up and you're going to have, you're not going to, those small groups or those groups that feel that way won't necessarily swing the election, will they?
And it's it's reckless and untidy, but imagine if they'd said, tell us more. Why is he an evil? Tell us how he's an evil genius. And then he gets pressure on. If there was a media like News Corp that was anti the LNP, they would continually hound him and say, explain how Elon Musk, who has the confidence of Donald Trump, is an evil genius. And they'd force him at every single interview to talk about that.
Luckily, there's only 5 days left.
Gosh, that would have been uncomfortable if they had asked it last night.
Yeah, they didn't clarify those sorts of questions, didn't they? They were more focused on the eggs.
And music.
Journalism.
One of the
finest.
One of the questions that they did, and I haven't got a clip of it, but I thought they did, or Anthony Albanese brought it up well, was the avoiding electrics with avoiding, what is it, how many seats are there?
There's seven. Well, there's 7 power sites. I'm not sure if there's 7 seats. It might be 2 and 1. Yeah.
Yeah. But Dutton is avoiding those areas, and he was asked about that. You said that was a...
Yeah, I think that's... Actually, during the ad breaks, I was switching over to SBS, and their show was the secret Chernobyl files. They actually had a nuclear thing, interviewing people from Chernobyl on while the debate was on. But, it's pretty extraordinary. And you got to give Dutton a bit of credit on it. He is being brave. It is a big policy to switch to nuclear power plants in Australia, and it's perhaps one of the more consequential issues of the election to go to a nuclear power industry in Australia. And he is not visiting any of the sites where
they're... David Littleproud, though? I'm just wondering.
Probably.
Yeah,
Well, David Littleproud's... Maranoa is one of those seats, isn't it?
No, Flynn. South Burnett. Flynn is one, yeah.
Is it Flynn? Not Maranoa, because...
I'm not too sure because South Burnett is part of South Burnett is
Flynn.
in Maranoa.
Yeah, just near the Bruce Highway. That's where I sort of.
So I don't know if the power plant would be in Maranoa or in Flynn.
Either way, I think it was a clever thing for the ALP to have jumped on and to send Albanese to Collie and WA straight up off the bat. It was a clever move by them to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. The early voting is right up there now, isn't it? We're at 23% in Hinkler. I don't have the other numbers for the other seats that we sort of look at, Hinkler, Wide Bay, Maranoa and Flynn. Does anyone know what they are? But they'd be about the same.
You'd have to think they're reasonably similar.
Yep. Now, I did get out. You went out. You were doing pre-poll?
Yeah, just today? Now in Port Harbour Drive,
Handing out.
Still pretty busy, yeah.
For David Batt, was it? Or?
For Labor.
Labor, okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah, you did that disclaimer at the beginning. And how did you find it? Was it positive?
Yeah, very positive. Yeah, it was all positive feedback. So handing out, there was obviously Labor and LNP. There was a Greens person handing out, which is pretty unusual in Harvey Bay, and Jared Rennick person handing out. I was told there had been One Nation there at other times, but there wasn't when I was there.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of orange shirts every day when I drive past.
So, I mean, it's kind of Jared Rennick, a guy running for the Senate, not running for Hinkler, doesn't have a candidate in Hinkler. Handing out, like again, I say that is going to be one of the really interesting races, the 6th spot in the Senate, because Labor will get 2, Corinne Mulholland and Nita Green. LNP will get at least 2. The Greens should keep theirs, and then I think that 6 will be between One Nation and Jared Rennick.
Yeah, well, that will be very interesting. Now, we all know Macca, who used to be on Who Gives a Vote, and he decided to step back this time to focus on other things. But I wanted to catch up with him today, and we've had a little bit of a chat talking about some of the things that are on his mind in relation to elections. He's not an election nerd. He's not a political nerd. But he's very much involved in the community, and we had an honest discussion, and I've put part of it in here, and I thought we'd just quickly have a quick listen to Macca and I having a quick chat in the field. Let's have a listen.
I just think there's so much going on at the moment, and it kind of feels a little bit empty. Harvey Bay's, been hit with a lot of things of late. Obviously, the flooding on the 6th. A lot of us have been affected personally, friends, businesses, all that sort of stuff. This stuff sometimes doesn't feel as important because it's not touching the everyday life.
Well, what's changed? Like that's the thing. What has changed?
I think trust is a huge one.
It is, isn't it? That's probably the key, isn't it? People have lost trust. Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How much does a carton of 12 eggs cost?
So I get it at the moment. So this is local. I buy the locally bought ones. So Brother eggs. They're from Maryborough. I'm not going to tell you what day they arrive at a certain butcher shop in the Bay because I want to still be able to get them. But $9.
You buy them for $9?
$9, yeah. And they are locally made. They're all like
made.
Yeah, they are made. They're literally made.
Let's rephrase it. They're locally laid.
There you go. Locally laid.
I remember you and I met here when it was the local government elections, and we said never again should they ever use this as a pre-polling booth.
That's right.
And yet here it is again. It is terrible. So you mentioned before that the biggest issue is trust. We don't trust. Can I also say another thing that I think is a problem?
You may.
We don't care. We don't care enough to worry about what's happening with our next door neighbour. We don't care enough about what's happening in an election. We don't care enough to actually look up and go, who's running in our seat, or what are the policies of the Greens or One Nation? What do I align to? We just don't care, and that's not a criticism of the individual. I just think it's the way that our society is moving, because what society has taught us over the last decade is if you care, you get hurt. And I have driven past your car. I've got to go back that way.
It's hard to worry about certain things when you've got a heap of your own stuff that you've got to deal with right now, It's like the triage. situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you've got to sort out who's bleeding to death first, even though, you know, somebody might be having a heart attack. I'm feeling like I'm going to have to counsel you after this trip.
I know, I'm going to go home and have a cry. Where's your car?
Hi, Stuart. If you're watching this, you're still alive. I know you came back a bit depressed, so I thought I'd write you a song. This one's called The Day the Politician Died. So bye, Mr. Political Guy. Took my camera to the booths with a tear in my eye. There were no hot snags or coke cans to buy. Stu was singing, this'll be the day I politically die. This'll be the day I politically die.
Well, that's going to be a first, Stu.
Sorry.
You've had a political song written for you.
Beautiful, beautiful. So my question, and thank you, Macca, for that beautiful song. And catching up with him today was fantastic. But there is a sentiment in the community. The first question I guess I have is: have we lost collectively, not individually, but as a community? Have we lost or are we losing trust in politics and parties?
I think there's always been a healthy distrust of politicians and government. I don't think we've lost or gained any ground there. It's just part of that culture.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a healthy distrust.
But aren't you noticing with social media and those sorts of,
I think there's an increase.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there's got to be an increase. You can't say that our level of trust is the same when there was 2 or 3 or 4 different media outlets that control the narrative.
Like the lack of a newspaper is a major thing. To not have a local newspaper. To obviously people aren't watching the news at night anymore. People are, they're getting the same stuff on their social media feeds that's reoccurring to them, reinforcing their own views. So yeah, that is a real significant issue. The lack of independent media, as biased as it can be, it was sort of at least in theory a source of truth.
Do you know how many people have? And I'm not going to give the answer, but it's more than 10 people in the last year that have had a conversation with me to tell me that Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, is in fact an actor and not a real politician. He's just put there, and the war in Ukraine is not actually happening, and they've got proof for it.
Yeah.
And then when I say, I don't believe so, and they go, well, who are you listening to? The politicians. I go, well, yes.
Yeah, the mainstream media.
Yeah. I'm listening to the mainstream media over your guy from
He did some research on YouTube.
Yeah,
he
that's
did
right.
used to be an actor, though.
Who did?
Zelensky did used to be an actor.
Yeah, but he's not an actor. He's a politician now.
I know.
I think the trust has been eroded on a lot of things, social media, these extremes, the extreme left or the extreme right, not just in politics, in a lot of institutions that have been trusted institutions previously.
I think it comes back down to the care factor. Are you going to act on it? So there's lots of chit-chat, there's lots of this information, whether it's true, correct, accurate, and there's that healthy distrust, as you call it. But the rubber hits the road when you've got a call to action. Like, what are people doing about it? They're just going on and having their conversations and flicking through social media.
They're voting for trumpeter patriots.
Do you think that'll actually convert into votes?
Some of them, yeah.
Okay.
I think that's why they've got Carson, whatever his name is, on their signs.
But the previous elections have shown that no matter what's happening, despite all that information or misinformation or whatever you want to call it, we still continue to vote the same way. We still have the 2 majors and a handful of, like, the composition doesn't necessarily change. It's one or the other.
They're always going to put their preferences too, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, the primary votes are way down. I mean, the mainstream parties, the primary vote's no longer in the 40s, it's in the 30s.
Yeah,
so there could be a tipping point at some stage where, it's not a safe, 2-party system.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting.
I
It's a
actually
really good
think
question.
that goes back to the Jacinta Allen billboard in Brisbane. I don't think it was a mistake.
You reckon?
There's
Why?
lots of Victorians that have mentioned it.
Because that is something that some of those conservative right-wing social media pages are on about. Jacinta Allen.
A friend of mine had, she's very politically astute. She made this, she created this post on Facebook and explained why she was going to vote. Underpinning all of this was an encouragement for people to get out and vote. But and then at the end, there was some debate, and one of her friends who is from Victoria said, if you are from Victoria and you've lived in Victoria in the last few years, you would not be voting Labor. And I thought that was interesting.
But they did.
So it does appeal, and I think it is. I think the billboard that was there was by design.
But they said that people weren't going to vote for Labor in Victoria after COVID, and they did.
That's right. That's such a. That's
But
such a-
Dutton's-
there's very loud voices.
Dutton's been spending a lot of time down there.
Yeah.
But it does because he has to, because he can't win any more seats in Queensland. He'll
it's where there's options.
The only place for growth is in Victoria and maybe a bit of Western Australia, isn't there? A few seats in New South Wales, but you're not going to get. You're probably not going to get any more in Tasmania. You're not going to get any. It's definitely in Queensland because you've already really.
In Queensland, they'd have to. I mean, they're not going to be Annika in Lilly. They're not going to be Shane Newman in Blair. I guess Morton, the sitting Labor member's retiring, so that's a possibility. But yeah, they're not going to
pick them up here.
Yeah, potentially maybe they could get one of the ones back from the Greens and Ryan.
They could lose one Dutton seat.
Yeah.
I still think he's
paying $1.52.
$1.52. Have you got the figures?
I do. Labor's paying $2.80. And Ellie Smith is paying $9.50 for the Teals. And any other candidate is $26.
Wow. So that's narrowed a bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was closer before. I think Ali France had like $1 something before. She was under $2 last.
Oh, maybe not. I think she's always just been over that too, but it just depends on which site you're looking at as well.
Yeah, which one do you use, George?
I don't gamble.
Neither do I either. This is like as gambly as I get, just looking at it and talking to you.
The closest I coming to gamble is taking out insurance.
Yeah.
That's a gamble.
Yeah.
Although I can get behind the Pope stuff. I might give that a crack.
Mike, I have put $50 in a sweepstake.
There's a Filipino that may become.
Yeah, it's about time. I mean, that'll be one of the strongest Catholic countries in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can just hear my mum now, how proud she would be so proud of him.
Yes. The other part of that question was, have we stopped caring? And I say that, let me qualify that. I think if you spend any time at pre-poll and see how many people come through and not even have an idea who is running in each election, when you think about how easy is it to access that information on your phone and at least have an idea before, you could spend 5 minutes informing yourself, and even people can't do that. So have we lost the ability to care about being a citizen?
Yeah, I don't think people take it serious. There's a large part of the population who very intentionally don't look into it.
Which confuses me when you consider history, how many people have fought for the right to vote, whether it be women.
And we're so lucky to be able to do so here.
Yeah. And yet, even in the US, they make it hard for people to turn up to vote.
Yeah.
They put restrictions that are onerous on people, particularly from certain community groups.
They hold them on a Tuesday. They're trying to bring in that you have to prove your ID.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds trite to say, "Oh, we got to value our democrats," but like we're the most luckiest generation in human history. You just have to go back a few decades in South Africa, and then people lining up, hundreds of meters to vote for Mandela. And over the course of human history, there's no society that would be as much in control of its own destiny as in Australia right now. And what people have been born into here in terms of a democracy, and you see it overseas in the US that it's not, indestructible.
No, it's under attack.
Yeah, I wish that people would become more informed, much more engaged. I think that would improve our ability as a society to debate and have good, healthy conversations. It would improve policy outcomes, advocacy. I think we do take things for granted because we are so very peaceful and lucky here.
Yeah, it's definitely taken for granted. And I don't know, I have these things in my head where does this circle back to our education system? Are we not teaching enough about it? And don't know.
Voting behaviour, like what we were just talking about then, none of it makes sense to me. So perhaps more education may, we might reach that tipping point, or perhaps the outcomes would be very different. I don't know. I've got so much in my head now.
Well, let's try and clear it with a bit of a cartoon. So maybe I should explain this to you, Sotera, because you don't follow rugby league, do you?
No.
So Nathan Cleary played for the Panthers. They won last year, unstoppable. I think they won 3 years in a row, or at least 2.
Okay.
I'm a football fan, so I'm really.
And by football, you mean soccer.
Yeah. So this week I'm more focused on the fact that Liverpool have won the Premier League title.
Is that good?
And yeah, it's fantastic.
Okay.
And then Celtic also brought it home and won the Scottish Premiership as well. So from that, my 2 beloved teams, Celtic and Liverpool, are both premiers for their countries. Very exciting.
Yes. Did Wrexham get promoted or something? Did I see something about
Wrexham
that?
got promoted. They're not my team, but it's good to see that. That's an exciting. How's your vegan team going, George? Do you know?
The Forest Green Rovers? No, I don't know.
No. Okay, so this is
they're in some 4th conference in southeast England.
Is that an actual team?
Yeah, the Forest Green Rovers. Yeah, the ground is. Yeah, you can only get vegan products.
Yeah, that's cool.
This is the NRL. The Panthers were doing really well. They're on high. Now they're hitting a bit of a low. And Nathan Cleary says, how does one go from unbackable winners to way off the pace in a couple of months? And then Dutton goes, beats me.
Yeah. And the NRL made the bit of the debate. It wasn't in the part that I watched, but I read a bit of the transcript where they talk about Papua New Guinea, the NRL team, and it being a soft diplomacy in terms of China reach in the region. And I thought it was a really good response that Albanese made when Mark, the moderator, said, oh, but China doesn't even play rugby league. And Albanese said, but that's the point.
And on paper, that came across really well. In reality, with all the noise and him talking over it, you lost it. And you're saying that's exactly the point. And then before as he's finishing the point, the moderators,
Mark Riley,
moderators talking again, and it lost. So I think in paper, it came across really well.
Saying, that is soft diplomacy. That is us building links with our neighbours about shared interests and about shared history.
Yep. So then we next week, you'll notice there, I didn't put a date because
No, we should come back and dissect the results.
Well, I'm going to be here on Saturday night. I'd like to do a live one, but we can talk about that, and then maybe the week after we can come back and dissect the results. But regardless of what happens, can I just say this has been a wonderful experience. I've really enjoyed it. We've really touched on some good topics. Have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, I've really loved it. Yeah, it's been fun.
Yep.
Yeah, great. I really like it too. It brings out the conversation and the nerd in me. But I love hearing all of your perspectives as well, more than my own nerdy needs.
You learn a lot, and people have flocked together.
Yeah,
that's right. Any predictions that have changed? You all still think it's going to be?
I think this last week, I think it's tightened up. It's a bit closer. I still think Labour's going to win though.
But you think it's going to be hung or not?
No, I think Labour will get a majority.
Yeah. Do you want to comment or
50% girl or boy? No, I don't really. I have no idea. I'm just going to watch with anticipation Anthony Green this Saturday. Call the results.
His last election.
Yeah. Oh, I know, he's retiring.
Sad.
That's crazy.
Should have an Anthony Green party. See what I did there?
Maybe we could all wear Anthony Green masks.
As long as it's not green and people get the wrong idea. Yep. Hey guys,
Labor minority is where I'm.
Labor minority.
Yep, they've only got to lose 4 seats to lose their majority. So I'm going Labor.
Which 4 seats?
I'm going with you on that one. Yeah.
I think they'll pick up 2 seats.
Mm-hmm.
Duttons. I think they'll do better in New South Wales than people are predicting. I think they hold Western Australia. I think they'll do well in Western Australia. Queensland, they could pick up 1 seat, maybe not, but I reckon they might. So I reckon it's going to be a 2-seat majority for Labor still. Where do you think they'll pick up?
I don't think they will pick up.
You think they'll stay?
I think they'll hold their seats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, perhaps Leichhardt, perhaps Capricornia, but I think Labor will do well to keep their gains.
Yep.
They're predicted to get one of the Greens ones in Brisbane back, aren't they?
Yeah, perhaps Griffiths, which is...
that used to be Wayne Swan's seat, didn't it?
No, Lily, which
Lily was
Annika Wells
one.
has.
Yep,
Griffith
okay.
was Kevin Rudd's seat.
Kevin Rudd's
and
seat,
then Terry Irwin. Terry Irwin. Terry Butler.
Yeah.
Terry Butler. Yeah.
Crikey.
So it was Kevin Rudd's seat.
Yeah.
And now it's held by Max Chandler Mather, which is the Green in Brisbane with a national profile, particularly about housing and the fact that he's a young guy, whereas the members for
been
Ryan,
agitating.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so while he has a bigger profile than their MP in Ryan, who I don't know her name, or even in Brisbane, which must be, is it Stephen Bates? He's the one that's more vulnerable.
I guess my point is that in this election cycle, just by way of media and by way of even the debates, all the other parties other than Coalition and Labor have been smothered. There's very little talk about their spaces and what they're doing, which is different than I've noticed in other elections. I'm not a fan of just having a leaders debate with two leaders. I think that every party, within a reason, as we've talked about before, has a right to at least say what their views are.
Agreed.
To challenge the status quo. Like, you have to be able to challenge the status quo and make those in leadership feel uncomfortable for a moment. And I think if you're just debating, if Albanese is just debating Dutton and Dutton is just debating Albanese, they know what each other are going to do, what questions they're going to throw. But even if you get a One Nation leader, even if it's Malcolm Roberts.
Jared Rennick's the leader of his party. He would have been fascinating to listen to.
Or one from further on the right, one from further on the left.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's got to be a better way. And right now, while I have watched all the debates, I'm somewhat left disappointed that there isn't a greater colour in our democracy.
Yeah, like the Monster Raving Loony Party or something. Like in England, that's amazing. Because they all have to go to the poll at the end of the night, and you have the Monster Raving Loony Party right
On
there
stage.
next to Boris Johnson or Tony Blair. Yeah.
Would you vote for the Monster Raving Loony Party?
Absolutely not. Because you can't preference there. And I might, whereas you could put him first and then Labour second. But yeah, you really are wasting your vote in most cases if you're voting for a Monster Raving Loony Party.
Do you guys want to start a Monster Raving Loony Party here in Australia? Are you open to it? No.
I don't know if I've got politician.
No.
I don't think I've got that stock.
Cue that music now.
Cue music. Guys, thank you for participating. Who gives a vote? And we'll look forward to the election. It's also important to notice that Canada election results are coming out soon. They're not quite out yet. And I think that'll be a really good indication of how the world is responding towards Trump, the Trump effect. So let's wait in anticipation. Thanks, everyone.
Yep.